The garden went quiet in a way that had nothing to do with the wind. Every guard on the outer terrace dropped to one knee at the same instant, a sound like a single stone hitting water, and the bioluminescent vines along the stone walls pulsed once, twice, sharp and urgent, the way they only pulsed for formal declarations. An alert chimed from somewhere above the canopy, then another. Then the alert system simply gave up counting and held one long, continuous note across the entire station. And Ronan Hale stood in the middle of it with his arms half raised, a plumber's jacket draped over the shoulders of a princess he had met 40 minutes ago, and absolutely no idea what he had done. She wasn't moving. Neither was anyone else. Across the garden, between the bioluminescent vines and the fountain's slow pour, Princess Ilara stood with her forearms folded close, two primary hands gripping the lapels of his jacket, two secondary hands pressed flat against her sternum. The petal-shaped markings on her shoulders, amber gold against warm skin, had opened wide. Her scent, which had been sharp and cold when the wind hit, now drifted across the terrace like something blooming after rain. The guard stayed kneeling. The alert held its note. Nobody moved. 3 hours earlier, the garden had smelled like irrigation runoff and overturned soil, which was, frankly, more Ronan's kind of atmosphere. He'd been assigned to the outer terrace at 4:30, station time, which meant he'd arrived at 4:30 with a wrench, a pressure gauge, two spare fittings in his breast pocket, and no particular feelings about the royal garden beyond a passing appreciation for the fountain's pipe diameter. Solid work, whoever installed it. He crouched beside the eastern irrigation channel, traced the blockage to a collapsed joint 20 centimeters below the surface, and got on with it. The garden was supposed to be empty. Gardeners finished at 4. He'd checked, and he hadn't checked for princesses. Princess Ilara arrived from the northern path with the measured pace of someone who walked formal corridors all day and treated a quiet garden as the one place she didn't have to. She moved between the flowering vines without touching them, trailing one primary hand along the stone wall, head slightly tilted, amber eyes scanning the exotic flora with the careful attention of someone cataloging rather than enjoying. Her amber-red gown moved with her. Her burgundy-red hair, curled and threaded with gold, caught the low light of the station evening. On a bench near the fountain, she set down a gold-rimmed visor, ceremonial by the look of it, the kind worn during pollen festivals to shield the eyes. She sat beside it, alone. She hadn't seen him yet. He thought reasonably that he should finish the joint repair and leave before she did see him. He had no clearance for royal presence. He had clearance for pipes. He kept his head down and kept working. What the Thanari release when calm as a light floral scent, faint as cut grass, almost imperceptible unless you're close. In distress or cold, it turns sour, acidic, a warning the body makes without permission. When the cold snap moved across the terrace without announcement, a pressure drop the station's climate systems hadn't predicted, the scent from the princess shifted. Ronan noticed it the same moment he noticed her shiver. At a tight contraction through all 4 shoulders, the petal marks on her arms pulling inward. He noticed it the way you notice someone flinch in an empty room. He looked up from the irrigation channel. She was rubbing her primary forearms with her secondary hands, a small, private gesture. The gown had no sleeves to speak of. The evening on the outer terrace was not made for thin silk. Ronan stood, pulled off his jacket, walked over. "Here," he said, and put it around her shoulders. She turned, like startled, large amber eyes going wide, all 4 eyelids cycling open in a reflex she didn't have time to suppress. The visor on the bench caught the light. He'd already turned back toward the irrigation channel. A plumber had no business giving a jacket to royalty in the garden. But he was already doing it. The sound hit before anything else did. Not the alert, not yet. The sound of every ornamental tree along the terrace responding to the station's emergency frequency chinned their bioluminescent cores firing in sequence. A low harmonic that moved through the soles of Ronan's boots and up his spine. He straightened, turned. The guards were already moving to the kneeling position. "What?" he said, to no one in particular. "What?" he said again, louder, which helped nothing. The warmth from the jacket spread through her shoulders in a slow radiating wave. Her scent shifted, sour going floral, the petal marks opening one by one, like something remembering it was alive. She looked at the jacket, then at the man who had given it to her, and already returned to his pipe fitting. Then at the kneeling guards, her secondary arms folded against her sternum, not in fear. In something that didn't have a name in the station's common tongue, but in Thanari it did, and the word translated loosely as received. It shouldn't have felt like homecoming. 7 hours until fleet arrival, her forearms folded in warmth. In the visor on the bench beside her caught the evening light and held it. If you've ever done something completely ordinary and watched it change the room, stay here. The next part is for you. The advisor who reached him first was a small, precise woman with silver-streaked hair and the expression of someone who had spent 30 years managing diplomatic disasters and considered this one, personally, an affront. She stopped 2 paces from Ronan, clasped her hands at her waist, and looked at him the way a doctor looks at an x-ray before delivering news the patient isn't going to enjoy. "You gave her your outer garment," she said. "She was cold," Ronan said. A pause. "You placed it on her shoulders." "Yes, deliberately." He looked at the jacket, still draped across the princess's amber gold shoulders. He looked at the 37 guards still kneeling on the garden terrace. He looked back at the advisor. "I work in pipes," he said. I don't... What's happening?" The advisor drew a breath that carried the weight of every formal document she had ever filed. "Among the Thanari, Mr. Hale, the deliberate placement of one's outer garment upon another person's shoulders is not a gesture of warmth." She paused. "It is a gesture of claim, of selection. In your culture, you might call it a proposal, though that translation loses considerable gravity. The correct Thanari term is Nereth Val. It means, with precision, I choose you above all others, present, witnessed, and irrevocable." The fountain continued its slow pour. Somewhere above the garden canopy, a second alert joined the first. "I was cold," said Princess Alara from 3 meters away, in a voice that was doing its best to remain composed and not entirely succeeding. Her petal marks were still open. She had not removed the jacket. "You weren't cold," the advisor said, without looking at her. "He was cold. He gave me his warmth anyway," Alara said quietly, and then said nothing else, because there was nothing else to say, and she knew it, and so did the advisor, and so, slowly, did Ronan. He turned to face the princess fully. She was watching him with those large amber eyes, all 4 eyelids still, her secondary hands pressed together at her sternum, her primary hands holding the jacket close at her collar. And the gold threads in her hair caught the bioluminescent pulse from the vines. The gold-rimmed visor still sat on the bench beside her, untouched, quiet, as though it too was waiting. He thought about apologizing. He opened his mouth. "The fleet," the advisor said, "has already received the signal. Standard Thanari protocol. A witness Narath Val triggers automatic notification to the bonded house. Her Highness's fleet, 47 vessels, will be in dock within 7 hours." They will expect a formal reception. Ronan closed his mouth, opened it again. 47, he said. They're quite loyal, Ilara offered. He looked at the irrigation channel he hadn't finished. He looked at the spare pipe fitting still in his breast pocket. He looked at the princess of an alien royal house, wrapped in his work jacket, petal marks open, smelling of something that was apparently the Thenari biological equivalent of contentment, waiting with an expression that suggested she was not, in fact, opposed to any of this. It looks like a river to me, he said. She blinked, all four eyelids in gentle sequence. What does? He gestured vaguely at the space between them, at the guards, at the incoming fleet, at the visor on the bench, the fountain, the entire impossible evening. All of it, he said, keeps moving and I can't see where it ends. Her petal marks darkened slightly, not in fear, in something warmer. She looked at him for a long moment, and then the corner of her mouth moved, small and private, a smile that wasn't performing anything for anyone. The Cooks Union, it was later recorded, filed a formal grievance arguing that the preparation of a celebratory bonding tea for an alien princess fell outside standard station catering contracts and constituted hazard pay territory. The princess disagreed in writing with considerable specificity. The grievance was withdrawn. In the fleet docked at 6:41 the following morning. 47 vessels, standard formation, full ceremonial flags, which no one on the station had seen before, and several crew members photographed quietly from viewports. In the garden, on the same bench where she had set it down the evening before, the gold-rimmed visor now bore two initials etched into the lower left corner, small and precise, ARH. The station's cultural liaison had explained, gently, that in Thenari tradition, in the bond relic, the object present at the moment of choosing was marked and kept. Not in a vault, not in a formal display case, on the bench where it happened. Ilara sat beside it in the early light, her forearms folded, the borrowed jacket still across her shoulders, waiting for a plumber who had a 7 o'clock irrigation job on the East Terrace, and would, she had been told, come right past this path to get there. She did not hide that she was waiting. That was the thing about it. She didn't hide it at all. "Good morning," he said when he came through. "Good morning," she said. The fleet could wait. He just said good morning. She just stayed. And somehow that's the whole story. If you're the kind of person who understands why those two words land that hard, join us here. We'll have another one for you tomorrow.